Hey guys, Stephanie here with the Aeroponic Tower channel, and today I want to talk seedlings and starting seeds. This is a question I get a lot, and I just want to talk about a couple of things and some things to be looking for and some things to be mindful of. And how do you decide if you're going to buy seedling starts like these that I bought, or if you're going to start your own seeds? These smell so incredible. It's lavender. There's also rosemary. So let's chat all things seed starting and seedlings. All right, so let's take a look at some of the seedlings I have here. Ooh, I have my green juice. How gorgeous is that? It's really hot out. I'm waiting for the sun to go down a little bit so I can do a huge harvest and clean out, and I needed starts. So I often say don't buy seedlings. If you're purchasing a seedling for $2.50, let's say, for a head of lettuce, that's really expensive. And so seedlings, I don't know if it's a tower garden thing. Oh, these are super dry. I need to water these. But they're $2.50 everywhere I've found. I think one place had them for $2. So for a head of lettuce, that's really expensive, because with a seed and a rock wool, nutrients, water, all the things, a head of lettuce only cost me under 50 cents from start to finish. So that's where it's not very cost effective to do it that way. I also feel like it's really robbing you of food freedom, because we're limited to the things that other growers decide to plant. And if something happens to that start, then you don't have that plant. Where if I can start my own seeds, I'm saving money. I can control how often I start seeds. I recommend starting seeds quite often, every 2 weeks, and I'll mention that again here. And you know, you're just kind of at the mercy of other people's seeds and where they came from, where I can control where my seeds come from and the kind of foods I want to grow. So it's definitely smarter to learn how to start your own seeds effectively and get really good at that. But that doesn't mean there is never a time to go out and buy some seedlings. So what happened with me is it's summer, and I've been taking my children on adventures and camping, and we had projects, and I did not follow my plant seeds every 2-week rule. I say to take 1/4 of the amount of grow ports you have on your tower and start that many seeds every 2 weeks. The reason is because the way I teach to grow on these systems is to have a fast turnover of food. Some things like peppers and tomatoes and eggplants, those are going to be growing for a while, and then they're going to be producing food for a while. So that's a little bit different. But lettuce and arugula and a lot of greens and fast turnover foods, those need to be rotated out pretty quickly. There is this idea that you can cut and let things grow back, and I hear it all the time when I'll post reels and things, and people say, why did you cut the whole cabbage when you can cut the top and it'll grow back? Yes, that's true, but the root systems of a giant cabbage can be really large, and those root systems are going to continue to absorb water and nutrients and using resources that are not necessary. Where if I just start a new plant like this bok choy, then this, when it goes into the tower, as long as it's ready to go into the tower, it will just take off super fast. It'll grow in just a couple of weeks, and I can be harvesting that fresh food again using a lot less resources. It costs less to use a seed and a rock wool than it does to leave them in the tower taking up nutrients and water, especially this time of year when it's hot, because the plants are using a lot more water when they're outside in the summer versus inside in the winter. So that's my thoughts on that. I also think food starts to change taste and texture when you cut it and let it grow back. Now, does that mean I never do that? No. Baby greens, I will cut them once, let them regrow a second flush, and I'm trying to think what else. Sometimes kale, depending on the plant, usually. And that doesn't mean you're not eating off the plant and eating around the plant while it's in the tower. It just means I never cut the whole thing and let it regrow. I will eat off of plants until there's almost nothing there. Then I'll harvest the whole plant and start again. So that's just my philosophy on growing on aeroponic tower gardens. Other people may have different philosophies with that. Just what I have found to be the most successful. So in order to maintain that, I like to take a fourth of my grow ports and start that many seeds every 2 weeks. I may be starting 1 zucchini, 1 pepper, and 1 tomato to make sure that I have fruiting vegetables in September if I'm starting them right now in the middle of June. For something like eggplant, peppers, and tomatoes, that may be the case. The rest would be fast turnover things like bok choy. This is cilantro. Cilantro is going to go to seed, or want to go to seed, very, very quickly. I'm going to put these in shady spots on my tower and hope that holds them off. But in this type of weather, you're going to be going through a lot of cilantro because it's going to want to go to seed. So I'm going to have to put it in, let it grow, harvest it really quickly, and replace it. I also have some mizuna and other things like that that are just fast turnover greens that are going to be off the tower within 5 weeks max. So we're actually headed out of town for another adventure, and as a homeschooling mom, the summer is our time to do things that are fun. So I am always going on adventures with my children this time of year, which means I'm busier. So I splurged and bought starts. I will link below where I got these starts from. She's a local grower. She's absolutely amazing. Her farm goals, let me tell you. They have this greenhouse. It's so fabulous. I'm going to post some pictures of some of her outdoor towers here. Just so gorgeous. She's from a different country, I forget where, and bought the farm. Oh my gosh, these smell so good. So definitely support her if you want to grow seedlings. I highly recommend her seedlings. She will ship them anywhere, and they are just a lovely family. So let me share what I have and what I chose. These, I mean, they just smell so delicious. And I want to make sure that my towers don't have any open grow ports in them where water can get in. So that's one of the reasons why there are people who sell little cap covers that you can put over things, but in a baby green section, I've never seen them. And what'll happen is rain can get into those grow ports if they're not covered, and then it can dilute your water and you can start to have nutrient issues with some of your plants. So we want those covered. Also, I never want to miss the opportunity to be growing food. We're running power, and it's not much. It's very minimal. These are just small fish tank pumps. They may look very high tech, the towers, but they're actually very, very low tech. It's just a fish tank pump. But we're still running the pump. So my thoughts, and I still have nutrients in there, and with open grow ports, nutrients and water can evaporate. So we don't want that either. Or water can evaporate and leave the nutrients behind and throw off your nutrient balance and all of those things. So my thoughts are, if we have a tower running, I want every single grow port filled. That means getting creative on what you plant, because if I have tomatoes and peppers and eggplants on a tower, those are really big plants, and I may have a spot in between 2 really big plants where it's not going to get a whole lot of sun and it doesn't have a whole lot of room. So what can we put in those spaces as companion plants so that we're covering that spot and still getting food? And that's what a lot of this is. So I'm going to go through all of this with you guys and just kind of chat my theory on why I purchased every one of these. And again, I will link this farm below. I think it's Western North Carolina Urban Farms, WNC Urban Farms. Lovely family. Definitely support them if you want to buy gorgeous starts. So let's go through these and let me show you guys some really fun things that I found. I'll also show you guys and talk a little bit more about starting your own seeds towards the end of this video. So these are all my own seedlings. And I have an assortment of pretty cool weather crop things here. I started these a few weeks ago and I think it just was still cool here. And now it's pretty warm. So I'm gonna have to be strategic where I put these because they don't like all the hot weather. So these can be tucked in between bigger plants. Like this is Mizuna, this is a mustard. This will be a little bit more heat tolerant than something like a bok choy. I can take things like these bok choy and work them into areas where they're going to get a little more shade. I can also bring a tower inside if I decide. I've been saying I was going to do that, but actually I have a different option I think I'm going to use inside this year, just because if you look out there, the towers are pretty full and I'm not sure I want to readjust everything. This is my home tower that I was going to bring inside, but it's already set up with some outdoor foods that have adjusted to growing outside, so I may just let those be for this season and find creative ways to get these cooler crops to grow just by giving them a little bit more shade. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. There's a cabbage here. I planted these the same time as all my other cabbages. All the other cabbages have become huge and have been harvested, and this one is still tucked away being shaded. Obviously it makes it smaller, but it means I have cabbage for longer. So that's what I'm talking about here, is just finding these little places you can tuck plants in. And yes, it may stunt their growth a little bit, but that's okay too, because I don't need that to be giant right now. And if I do want it to be giant, when I harvest this cabbage and other plants above it, it's going to get more sun and grow really quickly, and then I can harvest it and eat it. All right, and here is some rock wool where I planted some squash seeds. I like to grow all my things on a heat mat under a grow lamp, but I didn't have any spots, so I went ahead and put those in there. It takes them a little bit longer to come up. I have more success if I just keep things on a heat lamp, but you know, sometimes you just do what you gotta do. So many cool things over here. These are all mustards. But let me show you what I purchased. So over here, and what I purchased from the farm, this is lavender. Is it lavender? Hold on. Yes. So we have amazing smelling lavender right here. Next to it is some Thai purple basil, some regular basil. I have quite a bit of basil, but you can never use too much basil. Some peas. So peas are a great example of a produce that I can tuck into the tower to grow protected from the sun behind things like tomatoes and peppers. These will grow down, they'll grow up. I can weave them behind things. So I plan to put my peas around some of those bigger vegetables like the tomatoes and let them stay close to the tower. The tower stays cool. If you go touch my towers right now, they're actually cool to the touch, because at night the water is getting circulated and cooled off at night with the cooler temperatures, and that just keeps everything a little bit cooler. With all of those plants, there's shade protecting the tower from getting blasted, and so it just stays cooler. You can grow things like these peas in that area. I am doing some sunflowers. She had some dwarf sunflowers that were so cute on the tower that I just couldn't resist. This is chamomile. It can get pretty big on a tower, but it was so beautiful on her tower, and just the idea of being able to come out and harvest my chamomile flowers off the tower instead of bending over into the garden where it's so hot and dirty just seems so appealing. So I'm definitely doing chamomile moving forward. Same with calendula. Calendula grows in my garden really well, but then I have to go out into the soil. So I'm gonna grow my calendula on the tower. Calendula is great for skincare. I actually use the flowers and soak them in olive oil once they dry and make my own skincare products with those. Marigolds. Marigolds are great for pest control. I really just got these to add some colors to my towers because color is so pretty. More lavender, more basil, and some parsley. I fell behind on my parsley, and my parsley starts have been taking a really long time. So got some parsley to get us going there. And one of the things I have found with seed starting, so there are 5 different reasons that you can have problems starting your own seedlings. It can be too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, or bad seeds. And I thought I came up with a 6 the other day. I don't remember what that one was, but that's really the main issue. But there's also this phenomenon, I call it, where seeds, I think plants are intelligent on their own level, seeds. And when I start seeds coming out of the winter in the spring, I use the heat mat, the dome that I've mentioned before. I always, if you guys aren't familiar with my seed starting philosophy, I'll link a video below. I start my seeds in smaller containers like this because everything has a different germination rate. So here I've got 2 plants that have germinated and the rest haven't. And I don't want to be in a situation where I have to take off this top if I was on a big tray like this one, where I can't give those other seedlings time to germinate because then your germination rate falls. So I like to do small container, dome lid on a heat mat. What's really interesting though is when I do this coming out of winter into spring, I started my pepper seeds right in the rock wool, and what'll happen is they come up so fast and they turn into gorgeous pepper plants super fast. And you get gorgeous plants that look like this really quickly. When I start seeds using the same methods, even the air temperature can be the same in here. Different times of year, it takes longer. So I don't know what it is about the spring. I don't know what's in the air or the atmosphere or what's going on where plants just know it's time to bloom. So just be mindful of that, because this last batch of seeds I've started, everything's starting to come up. I can look in here and see that there are little sprouts on each one, but they're super slow right now and it's just taking a really long time. And that's just a side effect of trying to grow out of season. So if you're starting your seeds in your house and you're growing year round, just know it may take 3 weeks for some of your seeds to come up. All right, so let's go through some of these just to give you some ideas what you can grow. Here's rosemary. And with things like rosemary, oregano, a lot of these are more perennial or biannual plants, meaning they're gonna last a long time on your tower. These are not the ones I'm talking about harvesting the whole thing and pulling the whole plant out. These are things you're going to take little bits of for a long period of time. Now again, there is gonna come a time when these get too many roots. And in that case, I'll make some videos in the future. So you can use a method where with something like rosemary, you can take it out, trim the roots, trim the whole plant back if it's gotten too big, and keep that same plant going. I'll talk about some of those more as those plants start to mature. It's not the case with every plant, so just be mindful of that. Sorrel is a perennial, and eventually when these get so root bound, I will break them apart and take a little clipping of one and put it in a new rock wool to keep up the plant going instead of starting from seed if the plant's really healthy, and I can put the rest in the ground. So just be mindful of that. This is a plant that will last a really long time, so you can do some root management on it. Tear it apart, use just a little piece of it to keep it going. Here we have oregano, great one to just tuck in between some big plants and let it do its thing. I have an assortment of peppers. I don't really need peppers, and I ended up buying a ton of peppers, but I do want to store peppers, put a bunch in the freezer for winter cooking, and they just looked great, and you know, why not? Can never have too many peppers. Peppers are so expensive at the grocery store, and so I really tried to focus on the things that are expensive at the grocery store. And again, I didn't want to spend money on lettuce because that's a really expensive investment for $2.50 when I can grow lettuce and greens like these for pennies. This arugula is pennies to grow. It's 8 cents for the rock wool and maybe 2 cents in seeds because I buy sprouting seeds. So I have California Wonder. I did early jalapeno, banana pepper, sweet carbachi. I'm excited about that one. And those are seeds I didn't start. I got a couple of sweet carbachi. I didn't start my own banana, so that was a good one to get from her. This one's a Hungarian hot wax pepper. I didn't actually start a lot of hot peppers on my tower, so I thought I would grab some of those. Here I have some green beans. Those are super easy to start, but I do need to fill my grow ports, so I went ahead and got those. some spaghetti squash because I couldn't find my spaghetti squash seeds, some yellow straight neck squash because for some reason I don't have any yellow squash on my towers. I don't know if my seeds were bad because none of the yellow squash made it. So got some of those. Over here, this is nasturtium. The flowers and the leaves are edible. I don't actually love the leaves to eat, but the flowers are edible and I love to snack on those. They're spicy. Each color flower, it makes a variety of different colors and each flower tastes different, which I find to be really interesting. So these are trailing. You can get the bush variety or the vining. These are the vining. So I'm going to put those close to the bottom. Some of my grow ports towards the bottom. Need to have something in them, but food doesn't do super great down there when it's getting completely shaded out where this nasturtium will. Nasturtium's really hardy. We've got more chamomile, some chives. Don't typically do chives or green onions on my tower because I can grow those on the ground and I have them everywhere, but for the sake of sharing for you guys who may not be able to grow chives in the ground, I wanted to put a few of those on the tower just so you can see what those look like. Here is another rosemary, some more chamomile. Back here, I did some dill. I started dill from seed and it's growing a little slowly, so I went ahead and got some more dill. These are leeks. So she did her leeks differently than I would do mine. And she's got quite a few in there. I'm guessing because she's treating them more like a green, where I treat my leeks like a leek. So I like to do 2 per rock wool. I'm not gonna thin these and waste them. What I'm gonna do is let them get bigger. I'm gonna put them in the baby green section of my tower. When they get larger, I will break them apart and put them in their own rock wool so I can have individual leeks. I've done that with celery that I've bought from her because she tends to start several seeds of celery in one grow port and I only like 1 per rock wool. Over here we're back to my stuff. This is endive. That's a great one to grow in the summer. It's a little hardier and all of those beauties. So over here is my grow station. So this is what I was talking about. These lights are by Fairy Morse. I love them. They're my favorite. I recommend some other ones on Amazon that I have because you can't find these. They're really hard to find and they're expensive and they're really not, they're just like a fluorescent, but I don't have to turn them off and they do really well. So people ask me all the time what those are. They're Fairy Morse and I do love them. I keep these on a heat mat. And this is an example. I said don't do all of them in a big tray because they'll sprout at different times. I just didn't have any more small trays and everything was okay. Oh, it's raining out. Most of this all came up at the same time because most of it's beets. I'm doing an entire baby green section with beets for a juicing haul. I'm going to do a liver cleanse. And then I've got my cucumbers and some squash, and these are turnips over here. Down here are, this is that tray I was holding a minute ago with some pepper. That little tiny thing right there, that, I don't even know if you guys can see it. That is a celery. Celery is so tiny. And here's an example when some of the things sprout and some don't. And you have to make the call when that happens, what you're gonna do. So these are probably kale. There's some sort of brassica. And over here, these are eggplant. And so I decided the eggplant was more valuable than the brassica, and the brassica is pretty hardy if the leaves get wet on top. So I'm keeping the dome on just another couple days. You can see they're starting to sprout. And so that's why I say to kind of group your seeds according to how fast they'll sprout. That was poor planning on my part. If these are kale and those are eggplant, I should have known better, but I was probably in a hurry. And you know, sometimes that's just the way it goes when you're gardening. Over here's endive and some squash and zucchinis and things. Back here, again, not a lot of things sprouting. I've got one thing that came up. So everything's taking a little bit longer than it did in the spring. Actually taking a lot longer. But again, don't give up on these because I was tempted to give up. And then all of a sudden, all these sprouts came. These are peppers. I'm gonna have so many peppers, guys. I just love it. And thanks for watching, guys. I lost the exit video for this, and I apologize for some of the blurry images. I didn't notice my camera was off, but here I'm just gonna show you guys a few more images of the beautiful farm. I love this idea of putting the towers on a deck, and I have seen where her vining vegetables grow along this fence, which gets them off the ground, which is so creative. But thanks for watching. I hope this gives you ideas and inspires you to start some of your own seeds. And if you need to purchase some starts, I highly recommend heading over to WNC Urban Farms. I will post a link below. And thanks for watching. I will see you guys on the next video.